Okay.
Yes.
So we welcome each and every one of us to this program on questionnaire design and development. And the intention of organizing this program is for us to have a very sound knowledge. Can you see my screen?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can see your screen.
Okay. And the intention of organizing the program is for us to have a very sound knowledge of how to design questionnaire, validate it, and its ethical use. Most of the time, we are going to realize that even apart from the fact that maybe you are running a PhD program, you are running a master's program, this area of questionnaire development is a very important skills that if you have that skills, you will be able to do a lot of things, even when it comes to writing policy papers, working with international organizations like United Nations and the like, because most of the time they design instruments like questionnaire to understand their level or their stages of policy implementations. And even if you are writing papers, sometimes most people cannot publish in quality journals like Q1, Q2, Web of Science, and Scopus, not because they are not that intelligent, but because there is an issue from their questionnaire design to validation and the ethical use. And that's the reason why this training is so important for each and every one of us to attend. And also, as a follow-up for this training also, we intend that at the end of this training, that the registered participant will be able to collaborate. And at the end of the day, through this collaboration, they can develop questionnaire, come together, write papers and publish it in quality journals, which will also serve as an opportunity for each and every one of us to improve our profile. And that is the reason why we have deemed it fit to bring an expert that is going to help us to deal with the topic. And the person that is going to assist us or that is going to facilitate today's program is no other person than Dr. Kunle Anyawale. Dr. Kunle Anyawale is a senior postdoctoral research fellow at the Department of Mathematics, Science, and Technology Education at the University of Johannesburg, South Africa. And also, he is a senior lecturer at the Department of Educational Foundation, National University of Lesotho, Lesotho. He holds a PhD in educational research, measurement, and evaluation, with a specialty in the field of assessment and psychometrics. He has a lot of certification from universities such as University of Michigan, US, and also Johns Hopkins University, United States of America, in the areas such as Python, data science, and R programming. His research interests include testing theory, instrument development and validation, psychometric, generalizability, theory-based reliability analysis and evaluation, AI in education, Q methodology, structural equation modeling, and computerized adaptive testing. His current research involves advancing technological solution assessment for the purpose of developing a more effective and efficient method of educational assessment in Africa. Please join us to welcome Dr. Kunle Anyawale. Dr. Kunle Anyawale, the floor is yours. I will stop sharing my screen so that you can share yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Bamiru and the SIT Association, or I don't know, for inviting me to make this presentation this morning. It's a privilege that I'm here, and I believe with my wealth of experience in test development, instrument development, validation, I should be able to, provide necessary guidance on how best a valid questionnaire should be developed. With that said, we share my screen so that we can kickstart the presentation. And I want to appeal to all participants to jot whatever question that you want to ask so that at the end of the presentation, we can brainstorm on it together. Can you see my slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the title of my presentation is Mastering Questionnaire Design, Validation, and Ethical Use for Research Engagement. And like the moderator have said, my name is Kunle Ayanwale, and I'm from the Department of Mathematics, Science, and Technology Education from University of Johannesburg, South Africa. In the course of this presentation, we'll be guided by the following outline. So we are going to look at the importance of developing and validating questionnaire. What are the errors, in questionnaire development, and how to avoid some of these errors, the purpose of designing a questionnaire, what are you measuring? Determine the audience, your target audience, your population, sampling and population selection, collection approach, measurement scales and scoring, question wording best practices, logical order of items, pilot testing, ethical consideration, importance of validation, testing, reliability, and factor analysis. Introduction. The multiple item skills designed to measure attitudes, questionnaire, opinions, personality, and other attributes are ubiquitous in today's world and are widely used in making decisions, assessing student and employee satisfaction, conducting needs assessment, and program evaluations in research projects. Like Dr. Bamiro said when he was making introduction to this workshop, questionnaire development is very important, irrespective of your area of discipline. You need this. And you might be fortunate to work with different international organizations whereby you have projects you are working on that is need for you to either collect your data or you generate data from target audience. So this skill is known as questionnaire, and at times we call it multiple item scales because there are possibility of having dimensions, that will underline the scale. Those involved in such activities often have little knowledge of how to effectively develop and evaluate the skills they need. This knowledge is crucial because data obtained from these skills are only as good as the skills themselves. What I'm trying to say here is that the moment your instrument or the scale is faulty, definitely whatever information collected through this scale will be faulty. And even the results or your findings will also be questioned. So there is need for us to develop a valid and reliable scale for our data collection. It's like you want to build a house and the foundation is not too good. If the foundation is weak, definitely one day the entire house will what? Will crush, and that is a big problem. The same way in research as well. The moment your instrument is faulty, no matter how good you are as a data analyst, or probably you use a fantastic statistical tool, that cannot correct the methodology, the faulty methodology that you use. Scales that are not well developed often yield data that are not usable for intended purpose. And for us to develop a questionnaire or an instrument, we have our intention to say that this is what we want to achieve, this is what we want to measure. So how appropriate or how adequate is our instrument actually measuring what we purport to measure? In this workshop, I designed to give the concept and tools to develop attitude, personality, opinion, or other non-cognitive skills. This presentation provides a structured methodology for designing, implementing, and validating questionnaires to ensure they are reliable and align with your research objectives. When you look at the personality scale, attitudinal scale, opinion scale, and so on and so forth, all these are categorized as non-cognitive skills. They are non-cognitive skills because you are looking at their perceptions, interests, engagement, feelings, and so on and so forth. At the same time, we have a cognitive instrument as well, which deals with the intelligent quotient of our respondent. So the way we develop a non-cognitive instrument is the same way we develop a cognitive instrument. Just that one, in terms of response format, it's diverse. So what are the common errors in questionnaire development or design? The key challenge is designing a survey that meets its objectives while avoiding common errors. So what are these errors that's likely to happen when we develop our questionnaire? One is sampling error. Sampling error. In the course of this presentation, I'm going to talk about different sampling techniques that we have, but we just want to look at the error related to what? To sampling. This occurs when the group surveyed is not a good representative of the population. So when you say you are developing a new instrument and a new questionnaire, you are expected to have a very good sample from that population. Most times, even in the literature, it has been said that you should have around 2/3 of the population to be sampled. And there are some scholars that says that we can use case per parameter method to assess the adequacy of our sample. So I'm going to talk about the sample size adequacy also in the course of this presentation. So the sampling error can occur when this sample or your respondent is short of representative of that population. So it can cause a sampling error. We have frame error, which arises from inaccuracies in the list of respondents. Let's assume you have a target respondent that you are using. Maybe let's say you are using learners between, let's say, from age 15 to, let's say, 20, for instance. And along the process, you sample respondents outside this age range. Are you getting me? So that can lead to frame error. We also have selection error, which happens when everyone does not have an equal chance of being selected. So in terms of sampling, especially the simple random sampling, we have systematic random sampling, stratified cluster sampling, and so on and so forth. So when you use any of this, you must make sure that the respondent, have equal chance of being selected. once this is violated, then it can lead to selection bias or selection error. We also have another one which called the measurement error. And this measurement error can come from when the questions you develop are not clear enough, bias, probably favoring a particular subgroup of respondents, and do not measure the intended variables in terms of how reliable and valid those content that you develop. So that can lead to measurement error. And even this measurement error, you can also have either systematic error or random error. Error that comes from the instrument in terms of lack of clear instructions, on the questionnaire, and probably in the process of administering the questionnaire, the random error can also, come in maybe in terms of noise, environment, and fatigue, and a lot of things can actually affect the way your target audience, respond to your questions. Non-response error reduces the generalizability of findings due to a lack of responses. So, and that is why it's always good that let's assume the minimum sample size required for that study, let's say is 500, for instance. You are expected to sample times 3 of 500, which is 1,500. Why it's so is because there might be attrition, no response, to the question, so that at the end of the day, you will still have enough responses that can bring about generalizability of your results to the entire population. But if you have, let's say out of 200, and you have about 50 or 100, non-response. So it's a big problem. It's going to affect your analysis, or probably if you are good, even if you have the non-response, there are a way, because we call it missing values. So there are a way you can handle the missingness. We have different methods that you can use to handle the missingness, and you have to check whether it's missing complete at random, or missing at random, or missing not at random. So you have to determine this first before you will know which method it is most appropriate to handle such missing data. This guide outlines strategies to avoid these pitfalls by adopting a logical and systematical approach. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are few errors that are likely to come up when we design our questionnaire, our survey, and all these things need to be adequately taken care of while we are developing our instrument. So what are the purpose, or determining the purpose of questionnaire? As you are developing your questionnaire, there must be a reason why you want to use that questionnaire. One, is it to assess the current condition or status of a particular program, project, or what have you? So this involves gathering information about the current state of affairs, such as attitudes, opinion, or behaviors. Or probably you want to measure someone's happiness, for instance. Happiness is not something that you can observe. You cannot observe my level of happiness. You cannot observe level of happiness of Dr. Bamiro and other participants here. But the only thing you can use to measure that particular, because happiness is a latent variable. It's not something you can observe. So for you to measure it adequately, you have to measure that happiness, indirectly using observable variables. And what are these observable variables? These are items that you come up together to measure that happiness, adequately. So you can use questionnaire to measure the current condition or status of our feelings, our attitude, and so on and so forth. Also, you can also use it to measure changes before and after a program. And this helps evaluate the effectiveness of interventions or programs by comparing data collected before and after implementation. For some of us in social sciences, humanities, and all that, where you do quasi-experimental studies, you can develop a questionnaire probably to measure the effectiveness of a teaching strategy or assessment strategy, whereby you have your baseline information first, which is pre-test, and after the intervention, then you come back to measure the post-test, which is post-intervention assessment. So you can also use questionnaire to gauge the efficacy of that intervention in that experiment. Evaluate outcomes to inform decision, and this involves collecting data to assess the impact of a program or intervention. This very similar to the second one. The next thing is you need to ask yourself, before you design your questionnaire, what information is needed? Why is it necessary for me to develop this questionnaire? And can existing data sources provide this information from me? So there is need to ask yourself all these questions first. Now, the information you really need is maybe, let's say you want to develop question on student engagement in online learning, for instance. And probably there are existing instruments maybe developed and validated in other contexts. And you don't want to go in the route of developing a new one, since there is existing instrument. So what you need is just to adapt that instrument to suit your own context, and also in relation to the research objectives, what you want to achieve. Are you getting my point? So what you will need is you have to look at the instrument holistically, then you adapt it, and in the process of adapting it, you are expected to provide the initial instrument and also provide the adapted one, so that we will see areas where you adapt some of those items. And when you read the literature, also the theory literature, there are a lot of information that you are going to get when you leverage on this effectively. So clearly defining your research questions and objectives ensures that every question in the survey serves a specific purpose. So these examples of research questions and objectives. So, and I want to say that your research question must be specific, it must be measurable, it must be achievable, it must be relevant, and time-bound. So you don't just set research questions or even research objectives. It needs to be specific, needs to be measurable, relevant, achievable, and even time-bound, so that it has a focus on what you intend to achieve, that is the development of a particular instrument for a particular construct. For instance, we have research objectives that talks about to evaluate the content validity of developed scale through expert review. And the research question says, does the scale exhibit strong content validity when reviewed by experts? Another one says, to assess the construct validity of the scale using exploratory factor analysis and confirmatory factor analysis. The research questions now be, is the construct validity of the scale supported by EVA and CFA? And the last one is to determine the reliability of the scale using internal consistency. Does the scale demonstrate acceptable reliability levels? When you look at this, you will see that these questions are very specific, they are measurable, they are achievable, it's time-bound, and it's relevant to development of what? Of a good, a valid questionnaire. And these examples demonstrate how clear objectives lead to focused and relevant research questions. Decide what you are measuring. You need to decide what you want to measure. Like I said earlier, is it attitude? Is it knowledge? Is it skills, behaviors and practices, goals and aspirations, perceptions, or what? For instance, like one of my study, which is still under review, we developed a scale measuring goal achievement at colleges of education. So the goal achievement is our main variable, the construct we are interested, in. So you can develop your questionnaire in relation to any of these. And when we say skills, skills is abilities, competencies, and performing tasks. So most times, the skills, if you want to measure the skills at times, some people believe that, yes, we need to use a cognitive instrument to, assess a particular skills. But at the same time, if you are skillful enough, I've seen some studies where a non-cognitive instrument was also used to assess, a particular competencies or task. For instance, let's say you are an HR person and they want to assess your competencies based on your or your area of discipline. They can come up with some questions that actually, reveal or identify the core competencies areas in as an HR person, human resource person, that you are going to respond to it, and it can be an extensive constructed response form of question. We have the attitude, which talks about the perceptions or opinions about the subject. And I've told you that some of those things, they are latent in nature. You cannot measure them directly. So we need to develop some items that will actually measure that construct indirectly. And those items that you have on the questionnaire, they are called observed variables. Some scholars also call it manifest variables. Some also call it indicators, because these are the indicators used to measure that particular construct. Behavior is also there. Maybe you want to measure behavioral intention to use a particular technology, for instance, or probably continuous use of a particular technology, and so on and so forth. So selecting the right type of measurement ensures alignment with your research goals and facilitate meaningful data analysis. Now you need to determine the audience. Who are your targeted audience? Age and education level, yeah, you can use that. Probably maybe you are looking at a certain age bracket or probably certain education level. It can be higher education, secondary school, or probably lower education, or so it depends. So you have to determine your target audience. That this question, like the goal achievement scale that I told you about, we actually targeted higher education because it's goal achievement in the colleges of education. So it's higher education, and we targeted both academic staff and non-academic staff in the higher education. So we ensure that the language and concepts are appropriate. So you need to tailor the way you would develop those items to the age group and the education level of your targeted audience. You don't just use some language that is not understandable to your targeted audience. And that is why the pilot testing is very important. After developing your instrument, you need to pilot test it, to look at if there is any issues concerning the structure of the questions, concerning how they interpret, all the questions, do they interpret all the questions the same way? because the moment one or two interpret a particular items, different from others, then such item is not valid. Familiarity with survey, you adjust complexity, that's what I'm just explaining, based on their experiences with questionnaire. This is actually maybe after the pilot testing, they raised issues, you interface with them that did you have any challenge in responding to each of the item, or what are the things you perceive that is not aligned with your age group, or probably the terminologies used is not well, resonate with the targeted audience. Also, the cultural bias and language barriers is also very important. Use inclusive language and translate surveys if necessary. So if you are in environment whereby there is diversity, are you getting my point? Probably you have your audience from different nationality, so there is need for you to bring in diversity and inclusivity. You need to interpret, for instance, like one of the survey that one international collaboration was invited to on global use of ChatGPT, in higher education. And for this particular instrument, we translated the questionnaire into 50 different languages, because it's a global survey. So we made sure that it cut across, in terms of language usage. So we need to translate the questionnaire to about 50 different languages: Spanish, German, English, even we have Sesotho. There are so many, so that we make sure that we bring in inclusivities. We are not marginalizing any of these our target audience. So field testing the questionnaire with a group similar to your target audience can help identify areas of improvement. Like I said, the field testing is the same thing as pilot testing, and they increase the validity of the instrument. We are still going to talk about this. Now let's look at sampling and population selection. We all know what population means. That is the entire group of interest. That is the omnibus audience that you are looking at. But because it's a survey, it is expected that it will be time-consuming, even resource, what is it called? In terms of resources, you need to do a kind of sample. Are you getting my point? And that sample now is a subset, is the fragment, of that entire population. So that at the end of the day, when you take the sample, you can use the sample, the result from the sample to generalize the, to the entire population. And that is why the sample must be a good representative of that population. Yeah. So sampling methods are different techniques for selecting a representative sample from the population. And we have different sampling techniques, from simple random sampling to systematic random sampling, stratified random sampling, and clustered random sampling. And these sampling techniques, they are known as probability sampling techniques, and they are mostly used when you are doing what is it called? When you want your sample to follow a scientific way of selection. So it follows a pattern, unlike the normal probability, either purposive, convenience, snowball, and so on and so forth, that you can do in a zigzag manner. It doesn't follow a specific pattern. So these are different sampling techniques that we can use, to sample our target audience and ensure a high response rate to improve representativeness and reduce non-response, error. Data collection methods. We can use different types of data collection methods, either mail survey, telephone surveys, web-based surveys, face-to-face interview. So it depends on which one is more convenient, for you. You can adopt from this, but with web-based survey, that is what many of us use these days because it's cost-effective and it's accessible. You can use SurveyMonkey, you can use Google Form, and so on and so forth. You just put your your questions in the Google Form or SurveyMonkey. There are so many of them. So just put it and then you send it to your target audience, maybe through email, through social media platforms, WhatsApp and so on, Telegram and so on and so forth. So they be able to respond to your question. And the advantage of using this is that in terms of data coding, unlike when you administer your instrument manually, as they are responding to your questions, you are affecting the responses at your own end easily. So at the end of the day, you can just download, maybe the survey is open for 1 month. And this is also very important when you are writing an article, even if it is dissertation or thesis, there is need for you to indicate the period at which the survey is being open, even if it is face-to-face interview, if you do telephone survey, if you do mail survey. So because of replicability, are you getting my point? So there is need for you to be transparent on this methodological aspect. How many weeks, how many months did you use for your data collection? And even for transparency sake, you can include the link to the survey even in your work. There are some journals, there are some reviewers that will say, okay, I want to see the link, used for this particular study. So you can embed the link into your study. So this can be used. And then we talked about face-to-face interview. Some of you will say, oh, no, this is quantitative study. Why am I using face-to-face interview or any other interview approach, maybe focus group discussion or key informant interview, or any of those interviews approach? It's very essential when you are developing the questionnaire. I'm still going to talk about, okay, let me just leave that in abeyance. The next slide, I guess I'm going to discuss this. So evaluate the advantages and limitations of each method based on your resources and target population. Yes, now we have both inductive and deductive approach to questionnaire development. Inductive and what? And deductive. So what do I mean by inductive? Yeah, the inductive is like interview. You have a particular, for instance, like the example I showed here. This is an ongoing, let me say, it's under review also. It's a scale development also. We look at here, we developed a scale to measure learners' attitude towards mathematics word problem. Because we have seen that in the literature, there is extensive and documented instrument that measures a learner's attitude towards mathematics. But mathematics is omnibus. There are several areas under mathematics. Is it trigonometric and measuration? Is it numeration and number and numeration, algebraic process, statistics and probability, and so on and so forth? So we found out with extensive review of literature that there is nothing like a specific instrument that talks about mathematics word problem. And we also found out that most of learners, are having or struggling to understand this word problem in mathematics. So, and that is the rationale, behind this study. So we came up with items that measure learners' attitude towards mathematics word problem. And for us to achieve this, the first thing we did was to go inductive. Inductive means we've identified our targeted audience and we interact with them, we engage them qualitatively so that we have better insight on what they feel about what problem, mathematics, what problem, what their perceptions, how best do they think that that particular area of mathematics can be demystified so that they will have a better understanding of it. So we have to engage them. We did several interviews with them, I think about 10 schools or so. So we interact with them to get insights first from our targeted audience, and that is inductive. At times, you will see some study, what they will do SLR, something like systematic literature review. Are you getting my point? That one is deductive. So when deductive means they go to literature, they read extensively about that particular construct, they read about the theory that are likely to underpin that particular construct, what are the elements, embed in that theory, and so on and so forth. So in this one, we use both inductive and deductive approach to develop the questionnaire. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you today, I've seen a lot of skill development. When you are developing a new skill, you don't categorize them at the initial stage of the development. Let the exploratory factor analysis do that for you. Because the moment you categorize them as the initial stage, you might be subjective in your categorization. Probably you said, oh, these are the items that is going to measure passion towards mathematics word problem, or these are the items that will measure emotion towards word problem, and so on and so forth. Or probably based on your deductive approach, you've seen in the literature that, okay, yes, if you use this particular theory, this theory talks about X, Y, Z. Are you getting my point? And then fix with the inductive approach. So by the time you want to develop those items, you now develop it based on each of the constructs that you identify. At times, it might lead to error. So what I always advise is that develop your instrument, develop those items based on the insight you got from the inductive and the insight you got from the deductive. And in this study, based on inductive and deductive approach, we developed 145 items. 145 items. And out of these 145 items, we gave it to subject experts in mathematics to look at the structure, to look at the way the items was developed and all that. So based on their recommendation and everything, we were able to have, I think, 130 something items at the end of the day. So we have the items naming from item 1, 2, 3, up to 123 items also. Now, let's look at the measurement skills and the scoring. Fixed response skills, because when you develop your items, the items must align with appropriate response format, either cognitive or non-cognitive instrument. We have the fixed response skills which provide predefined answer choices for respondents to select from, So here it's like when you have a multiple choice items whereby there are options for them to select, the correct options and so on. And that's fixed response scale. We have yes or no, true or false question, which is a simple scale used for binary responses. Probably maybe we mostly use this even maybe under the demographic variables, to ask whether you are doing this or not, or whether there is availability of computer in your school, yes or no, or do you attend lectures, yes or no. It depends on. So what I'm trying to say in essence is that there is need for you to align your questions, your statement must align with appropriate response format. We have Likert scales which measure agreement or disagreement, with statements using a range of options such as strongly agree to strongly disagree. And let me tell you that when you are using a Likert scale, which is very common, when you have a scale item, it has been recommended in the literature that at least you have 5 response formats, at least 5. The higher, the better. Because you will see that before is 4, some will even use 3. Are you getting my point? So it's always good that you increase the response format 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, the higher, the better. And another thing I want to let you know is that you will see some questionnaire whereby they will put neutral. Maybe in the process that they want to increase it from 4. Let's say strongly disagree, they now put neutral, then agree, strongly agree. So most times you are asking, for instance, you're asking me about my perception, or let's say my engagement towards online learning as a student. And you now put neutral. I cannot sit on defense because I'm a student, and definitely I'm using online. So you cannot put neutral. I cannot be neutral. So in that case, when I see some of those scale like that include what is it called? Neutral, or neither, some will even say neither agree nor disagree or something like that. So some of these things we need to avoid them. They are not proper when we are developing our skill. However, there are some constructs that probably especially they are related to medical earth sciences. Are you getting my point? They mostly use this neutral of a thing, because at probably maybe the subject matter that they develop the scale on probably is not even applicable to me. I'm not having such disease, or I've not experienced such before, and all that. So I can decide to go neutral, to say no, yes, I'm neutral in this. But for some of us, for us in social sciences, humanities and so on and so forth, there is no way. Most of our constructs, they are latent in nature. Are you getting my point? I want to see our perceptions, our feelings, our interests, engagement, attitude towards some of those things. So there is need for us to, as much as possible, eschew from using the word neutral or neither agree nor disagree. We have rank ordering, require respondents to rank items in order of preference or importance. So that is another way you can write a particular item, and then you ask your respondent to rank their preference. Are you getting my point? Probably maybe you say from strongly agree to strongly disagree, for instance, so they can do the ranking that, okay, yes, I strongly agree with this item, followed by maybe agree, followed by strongly disagree or disagree. So they can rank, the items based on their own preference. And the last one is open-ended questions, allow narrative responses, but are harder to analyze because it is more of qualitative. But at the same time, there is a way there is what we call multiple responses analysis in quantitative as well. So when you have an open-ended question like this, you can, bring their opinions together. It's like when you are doing qualitative also, that you use codes to form, teams and so on and so forth like that. So even in quantitative, there's what we call multiple response, whereby we look at their tones, of responding to that particular item. Then we bring all of them together, and then we analyze it, we run the frequency count and so on and so forth. Align your skills with research objectives to ensure consistency in responses and ease of analysis is very, very important. If your instrument must respond or answer your research questions. So if your instrument fails to answer your research question, then to analyze it then it's become a very big problem. Question wording best practices. So how do we, write our questions? What are the do's and don'ts? So effective question design ensures clarity and avoids bias. One, you need to use a plain language and avoid jargon. Avoid leading or double-barreled questions. Ensure answer/response choices align with the question's intent, like I said. So I gave some examples here. I said, avoid asking questions such as, how satisfied are you with the quality and speed of customer service? Or probably you put it in form of, I'm satisfied with the quality and speed, or I'm satisfied with the quality and speed of customer service. Probably you now use strongly agree, or you let's say you use very satisfied, satisfy, unsatisfied, or something like that. So when you look at this, these are leading questions. They are double-barrel questions. And this question asks about both quality and speed. Those are the two keywords there. But it only provides one response, making it difficult for the respondent to answer fully. Another one says, do you think the new software is user-friendly and helpful for your work? This question also combines two different aspects, user-friendliness and helpfulness, into one, which may lead to an unclear and incomplete response at times. So this is another area whereby the non-response can come in, because the question, the statement is not clear, it's a leading questions, it's double barrel, and then your respondent might decide to just leave it because they don't understand it. There is no clear direction, instruction, on the item. To avoid confusion, it is generally best to split double barrel questions into two separate ones. For example, how satisfied are you with the quality of customer service? You will see that this is very simple and directional. Or probably you said, oh, I'm satisfied with the quality of customer service. And you have your response format as very unsatisfied, unsatisfied, slightly unsatisfied, satisfied, very satisfied, satisfactory, or something like that. And another thing I want to tell you is that when you are writing your response format, don't start from the extreme, what is it called it? Extreme end. You need to start from, for instance, let's say strongly, when you strongly agree, disagree, and all that. So you need to start from strongly disagree. So that strongly disagree will take a position of coding of 1, then followed by agree, disagree, which will take position of 2 in the coding. Then let's say the third one, you said somewhat disagree, which will take a position of 3. Then 4, you said somewhat agree, which will take position of 5 rather. Then strongly agree will now take position of 6. This is important because when you have a negatively worded items, by the time you want to recode it, are you getting my point? It has implication. You will see that in the next slide. So the next one is, how satisfied are you with the spread of customer service? When you look at these two now, you see that there is no confusion. It is very clear, very directional, and they will understand what each of the items is talking about. Now, let's look at the positive and negative items wording effect. In educational surveys or questionnaires, positive items are those that ask about favorable aspects or experiences, while negative items focus on unfavorable aspects or challenges. Inclusion of both negatively and positively keyed items often result in an extra dimensionality factors. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's important when you develop your items, you need to have both positive and negative items. Let me stop. Let me show you this. The item I was telling you about the other time. Can you see? Yeah. When you look at this, this is attitude towards mathematics word problem skill. I get my point. So we initially developed 145, but after removing here and there, so we have 123 items. And this is 123 items. When you look at these 123 items, you will see that there are both positive worded items and negatively worded items. If you look at the first one, I said, I like solving word problem in mathematics. This is positive. I have no problem interpreting word problem. This is also positive. What problem is easy to solve for me? This is positive. What problem in mathematics are very tasking and involve great level of thinking to solve them? When you look at this, this is more of negatively worded items. What problem takes too long a time to solve? This is negative. I dread word problem in mathematics. This is negative. I do not attempt word problem in mathematics at all. This is negative. I feel very nervous when seeing mathematics. So you can see that we have the mixture of both positive and negative, items in our skill development. So it's very essential when you have both, because it has been said in the literature that when you have both positive items and negative items, they correlate better, and it increases the number of dimensionality that you can have in that particular skill or item. This occurs because positively and negatively keyed items are more highly correlated within sets than across sets. Can you see? So if you are measuring a particular construct and you have 10 items under that particular items, you have, let's say, 4 or 5. 4 positive or 5 positive, then you have 5 negative. There is tendency that they will correlate better in measuring that particular construct adequately. But if they are all positive, you will see that at the end of the day, when you run the analysis, there is tendency that a very larger percentage of that items can be removed at the end of the day if they fail to meet the required loadings. So resulting in the correlational pattern that cannot be accounted for by a single factor. And this can introduce confusion when studying scale dimensionality. So when you have, if you are not skillful enough, you can have a multidimensional scale that is not unidimensional. So if it is not unidimensional, then it becomes a multidimensional scale. And then in terms of analyzing it, I get more, but it's not as simple as that of when you have a unidimensional scale. And especially for some of us in measurement, if you want to use something like item response theory model to even model or to assess the dimensionality of some of these scale, it becomes so laborious, intensive, unlike if it's unidimensional that you will just run a single analysis and then you are done. So numerous studies have also alluded to this, Coma 2013, Stefano and Multi 2003. Now let's look at examples. Okay, I've showed you some the other time, but I also gave examples of positive items here, which I said, I feel confident in my ability to succeed in this course. The teaching methods used in this class are engaging and helpful. You can see that these are positive tones. I find the classroom environment conducive to learning. These are positive items. And the negative items, I struggle to keep up with the pace of this course. This is negative. The course materials are difficult to understand. This is negative. I find the teaching methods in this class ineffective. This is also a negative. And then when you have both positive and negative, even despite the fact that we said that they correlate, but there is still need for you before the analysis to recode the negative worded items. to recode the negative worded items. Because, for instance, if I struggle to keep up with the pace of the course, and then you use strongly disagree, strongly strongly disagree, strongly disagree, slightly disagree, agree, and all that. This person that is struggling with the pace of the course will definitely choose strongly agree. And that strongly agree is coded as what? 6. Which invariably, this person needs to get 1. So you have to recode it from 6 to what? To 1. If you fail to recode, then it's going to affect the correlation among the items that measure the construct. So both types of items can help gather a comprehensive understanding of student experiences, but it is important to balance positive and negative items to avoid bias in responses. Also, there is need to look at the ordering of the question. How did you order your items? How did you present your items? It also has implication on the validity of your instrument. So the order of questions significantly affect response quality. 1, begin with non-threatening, easy to answer questions. Even if it is cognitive instrument, you don't have to start with a very difficult items. Maybe you look at the maybe WAEC questions or NECO questions or JAM questions and all that. It's always good that you start with items with low difficulty level so that the respondent will not be, the anxiety, is going to reduce their anxiety. If the first question they're able to tackle it, second question, so as they are progressing, the items is what is getting difficult. Unlike when you just start with the first difficult items, that can even discourage them and it can affect their performance on the rest of the items. So in non-cognitive instrument as well, you need to start with item that is very friendly. Start with simple, neutral questions, helps respondents feel comfortable and engaged, making them more likely to complete the survey. For instance, a question like how many hours per week do you typically spend on homework? When you look at this, it's a very straightforward question, very simple, very neutral, it's non-threatening, So it is factual, straightforward, and not intimidating. Another thing is group-related questions together for logical flow. So when you clustering questions by topic ensures respondents can focus on one aspect at a time, reducing cognitive load and confusion. Example, let's look at attitude towards mathematics, the clustering of those items measuring attitude towards mathematics. How confident are you in solving mathematics problems? How often do you use mathematics skills in daily activities? Do you believe learning mathematics is essential for your future career? So when you look at this, you see it boils down on attitude of the particular learner towards mathematics. The third one is always place demographic questions at the end to avoid fatigue. So you place the demographic items at the end of the questionnaire. Respondent might find demographic questions repetitive or irrelevant to the core subject of the survey. Placing them at the end minimizes the chance of early dropout. So like age group, the agenda, and so on and so forth. So a well-organized questionnaire keeps respondents engaged and reduces attrition as they are progressing on the questionnaire. Item order effects or question order effects. This is another thing that as a test developer, or yeah, you need to look at this. Other effects occur when the sequence of questions influences how respondents perceive or answer subsequent items. This can lead to biased results or inconsistency in data collection. In test and measurement, we normally call this one local item, local dependence. When a particular item is giving clue to another item in the same test. Are you getting my point? So it means such item is locally dependent on another item. So, and one of the assumptions of if you are using item response theory is that you must establish the dimensionality of the test. Secondly, you need to establish the item local independence. And the third one is monotonicity assumption. The same way in non-cognitive instrument as well. In fact, in this work that I showed you the other time, the attitude towards raw problem, I was able to establish the dimensionality, then the what does it call it? The item local independence, because I want to see whether there is item order effect in the items that we developed or not. So it's very essential that we also establish this statistically. Now let's look at this example, perceptions of teacher effectiveness. Item 1 says, how often do you feel motivated by your teacher's teaching style? And item 2 talks about how will you rate your teacher's overall effectiveness? Can you see the two items? Now the potential other effect is this. If motivation is asked first, it might frame the teacher's effectiveness in terms of their ability to motivate, potentially biasing responses. If the overall effectiveness is asked first, responses to motivation might be influenced by the general impression of effectiveness. So can you see the analogy there? So one is affecting the response to another question. Either you use motivation first or probably you use effectiveness first. So it has something to do with the way your respondent will respond to such item. So that's what we mean by other effect. Now let's also look at another example, attitude towards mathematics word problem. We said, how confident are you in solving math word problems? And item 2, how much do you enjoy solving math word problems? So the potential other effect here is if confidence is asked first and rated low, it might lead to lower enjoyment rating as students associate enjoyment with their perceived difficulty. Asking enjoyment first might lead to a more independent evaluation of what? Of confidence. So the way we present our items, it matters a lot in such a way that we don't allow one to give clue or affect our response to another item. We have types of item order effect. There are two basic categories of item order effects. We have context or prime effect and serial order effects. So the context or prime effect, these are effects where earlier items influence how subsequent items are interpreted or answered, like I will explain the other time, often by setting a mental context or priming a respondent to think in a certain way. So let's look at this example of perception of teachers' effectiveness. Prime effects now. If the motivation question, which is item 1, is asked first, it primes respondents to evaluate the teacher's effectiveness based on motivation, influencing the response to the overall effectiveness question in item 2. So meaning that item 1 is actually giving clue, to item 2 in that context. So it is called, that is prime effect. The second question also, which talks about attitude towards math word problems. the confidence in item 1 might influence perceived enjoyment in item 2 by priming respondent to equate confidence with liking the task or the difficulty. So these are the prime effect, or you call it context effect. Then the second type of item order effect is serial order effect. This effect occurs when the position of an item within the sequence imparts responses, typically because of fatigue, increased cognitive load, or perceived importance based on order. Perception of teacher effectiveness also as an example. Let's look at the serial order effect of it. So respondent might prioritize the first question, which is motivation, as more important simply because it appears earlier. Attitude towards math problems. The second question enjoyment may be undervalued if respondents feel tired or rushed by the time they reach it. And that is why when we have many questions, like the question, like the scale I showed you on attitude towards word problem, we have about 123 items final. So what do you think if we administer that 123 items to our respondent at a go? What do you think will happen? Fatigue will set in. It will set in. So what we do, there is what we call counterbalance design. So we need to employ a counterbalance design to boost the validity of the data collection. And this counterbalance design will reduce these effects of serial order effect. Are you getting my point? And even the context of prime effect is what it will reduce that, and it will reduce their random response to each of the items, because when they are tired, they'll just be taking anything. Okay, strongly agree, they disagree, without even reading the items in question. So when you have so many items on a scale, in fact, one of the co-author on the paper said, no, Dr. Ewali, this item is too much. How do you think our respondent will be able to respond to all these items? So I said, don't worry. That is something we are going to do, and it's called counterbalance. So we are going to divide the items based on item order. And we divided the items into, I think, into 2 or 3, so to say. Now, once you've finished developing your items, then you need to pilot test the item, or you call it fit testing. So pilot testing involves conducting small-scale trials to refine the questionnaire before full deployment. And when we say small-scale trial, it's just you have to look for the same age group, the same educational level, of your main target audience. These are the respondents that we are going to use, but they are not going to be part of the main study. So you are just using them as a trial, just to refine the questionnaire better, to see where there is ambiguity in the question, unclear items, testing response scale, formats, and so on and so forth. And also probably to run a quick initial reliability test to see the communality, how each of the items, correlate, what is their loading. So it's going to give you a kind of overview of how those items are behaving before you now take it to the main study, or take it to the main target audience. So the feedback from pilot testing helps improve the questionnaires' clarity, reliability, and alignment with your research goals. Ethical considerations are very important. You need to ensure rights, and well-being of your respondent. Informed consent is very important. Explain the purpose and they need to, voluntary participation. You don't need to coerce them. Even if you are a lecturer and then you are the one teaching the student and you want to use them, to respond to your survey, you don't need to coerce them. Don't say, oh, if you don't feed this survey, if you don't respond to it, then you are going to fail my course. No, you don't need to coerce them. It has to be a voluntary participation, and they are also free to withdraw at any point in time without any consequence. At the same time, anonymity is also very important. Confidentiality, you need to make sure that you protect them. Data privacy also is very important. You need to protect their data and make sure that you use the data for the purpose of research and nothing but research. And also avoid coercive language and minimize respondent burden. So you need to make sure that even the environment is very conducive for them, find a way of appealing to them, talk to them in such a way that they will be willing even to, respond to your survey appropriately. You don't need to be coerced. You don't need to use harsh voice language on them. So adhering to ethical guidelines, builds trust and improves response quality. And another thing that I forgot to include here is the ethical clearance also from your institutions or organization is very, very important. We normally have institutional review board, and even there are some top journals that, always request for this. We ask you provide the institutional clearance review board clearance or any ethical clearance that you have. So you must include the clearance number, you include the date that particular study was approved at the level of ethical committee. So you have to provide some of those things, and it's also to ensure transparency on your study. Importance of questionnaire validation. So now that you've developed your questionnaire, that is need to validate it, because we talked about validation and readability. So what are the things that is expected, to do at the validation stage? Validation ensures that a questionnaire accurately measures what it tends to, leading to credible and actionable results. So that is validation. That is, the questionnaire, measures what you purport to measure adequately. And when the questionnaire measure what you have in mind or what you intend to measure adequately, then automatically the results or findings that you are going to get will also be what? Will also be good. And the process also enhances the instrument's reliability, minimizing errors and inconsistencies. What are the benefits of this? You ensuring data integrity for sound decision making, building trust in the results among stakeholders, supporting replicability in future research. So when you do this, they will have let me say researchers or scholars will have trust in what you are doing or what you did, because you've actually validated your instruments. And if for replicability, so they will see the process, under your methodology. What did you do, to validate your instrument? How did you establish the reliability of the instrument, and so on and so forth? And then even if you adopt an existing instrument or a questionnaire, you still need to revalidate it. I've seen some researchers that say, I know they will cite previous studies that have used that particular instrument, and they will say in their study, the validation, or let me say the reliability or the validation is this and that. So they will now use the same thing in their own study also. No, because the context at which you are using the instrument differs. So there is need for you to revalidate that instrument. Either you are adopting it or you are adapting it. So there is need to do that. And if you want to adopt or you want to adapt any existing instrument, please, you need to write the author, probably the corresponding author on the paper, to say that, please, I'm doing this particular study and I stumble on your work which align with my research goal. Please, can I make use of your instruments used in this XYZ study? So please take permission, take approval from those that have used the questionnaire. So either you want to adopt or you want to adapt, that is neat, and you must acknowledge them, the source of that questionnaire in your study, except if you are just developing the questionnaire newly, or you are developing the instrument newly, that no one, like the one I told you on the mathematics word problem, if you go to literature, you will not see any existing instrument that talks about, what is it called? Attitude towards mathematics word problem at high school level. You have not seen. What you will see is attitude towards mathematics, either at higher level or high school or secondary school or lower, basic level of education. So if you are developing that, and then when we are done now and the paper is published, whoever that want to use such instrument need to write us to say that, yes, I'm also working on attitude towards work problem, this and that. I want to make use of your instrument. I need your approval. So without proper validation, result may be unreliable, misrepresenting respondents' true perceptions, behaviors, or knowledge. So we have types of validity, content validity, we have face validity, construct validity, criterion validity. We also have incremental validity and so on and so forth. So, but for this presentation, I will limit myself to content validity, construct validity, and criterion validity, which I think they are very essential, to validation of questionnaire. You can also do face validity at the initial stage of the item. Like I told you, we developed 145 items initially through inductive and deductive approach. And after the development of the item, then we gave it out to some experts to just look at it, just for structure, adequacy, and all that. So, and with that recommendation, we put down the number of items to 123 items. Now, the content validity now, which is very, very important, because your instrument, your questionnaire must adequately measure, that construct of interest adequately. Now, assessing whether the questionnaire covers all aspects of the topic under investigation involves expert reviews to ensure comprehensive coverage. Before I go into this, I also want to tell you that for when you are doing what is it called? Measurement model. We have two types of measurement model. We have the reflective model and formative model. So if you are developing your instrument or your questionnaire, if you know that this construct, you want to model it formatively, then you must make sure that all necessary items to measure that particular construct are included. And if you remove just one of them, then it will affect the original meaning of that particular construct, unlike reflective. And that is why when you go to literature, when people model, they use reflective model a lot. reflective model, allows you to remove any items at any point in time without altering the meaning of that construct. But for formative, no, we don't remove items. So let's say we have 3 or 4 things that is measuring. Well, let me give you an example. When you look at mathematics curriculum in Nigeria, for some of you that you're conversant with the syllabi, mathematics syllabi in Nigeria, you will see that we have about 6 areas. I think 6 or 7. I don't know if they've review it. But before I left the country, I know that I think it was 6. One, we have number and numeration. We have algebraic process. We have measuration and trigonometry. We have statistics and probability. Then we have introduction to calculus. So I think about 5. So these 5 topics, if you want to measure secondary school mathematics, especially from SS1 to 3, so you are expected to use or to develop items that will cover all these topics. So if you want to measure it formatively, all those topics must be there. But if you want to measure it reflectively, that's mathematics achievement, for instance, you can decide to say, okay, I want to develop items on number and numeration, statistics and probability, and then maybe algebraic process. That's all. Because you are measuring it, you are modeling it reflectively, it will not alter the meaning of that mathematics achievement. But if you want it to be formatively modeled, then there is need to make sure that you use all the components that measures, that mathematics achievement. So with that said, the content validity can be assessed using what I call Lossy content validity ratio, 1975. You can Google this, it's online. You will see how you can use Lossy content validity to assess content validity of your instrument. And the Lossy categorize this into 3. We have essential, we have useful but not essential, and we have not necessary. So what you are going to do, you are going to have a panel of subject experts, maybe like 6, 7, even if you can lay your hand on the document. I think there was a table there that shows the number of experts. Maybe if you have 5 experts, this is the expected, what is it called it, CVR or so. So it's actually indicated that in his write-up. So your subject expert needs to review each of the items you develop as either essential, useful but not essential, or not necessary. But recently now, we've collapsed the useful but not essential and not necessary to be not essential. So automatically, they will only rate it either essential or non-essential for each of the items. So let's say we have about 10 subject experts, so you are going to give the questionnaire to 10 of them to rate each of the items either essential or non-essential. And after that, you are going to use that formula there, which is content validity ratio, which is a small NE. I don't know if you can see it well. That small NE is the number of experts that rate the item essential. And the N is the total number of the panel experts that you use. So when you do this, you are going to calculate CVR for each of the items. And at the end of the day, to get your content validity index, you will divide it by, you'll find the average of all the CVRs, and that will give you the content validity index. For instance, we say the survey of teaching effectiveness includes items on pedagogy, assessment, and classroom management. So if I want to model this, I can model this reflectively because there is possibility of other components of teaching effectiveness that we can include there if we actually want to model it, formatively. Now from that, we go to construct validity. As you all know, construct is what is it called? Something that is not observable. Are you getting my point? So we have types. Under the constraint validity, we have what we call discriminant validity, and we have convergent validity. The convergent validity is the first one, which talks about bringing all the items together, and maybe 50% of the construct explain the variance. Then we have the discriminant validity, which talks about the uniqueness of the construct in the test, and you can also use correlation and all that to determine this. I think I will explain it in the next slide. So it determines whether the questionnaire accurately measures theoretical construct and requires alignment with established theories or framework. Example, measuring engagement using factors like participation, attention, and motivation. So when you have this engagement and you use factors like participation, attention and motivation, so these are the items that we are going to develop, that we are going to link it, to engagement, and then we are going to model it reflectively. And I will show you what I meant by reflective in the next slide. Criterion validity, this can be divided into two, and the result can be used, as external benchmark or standard. So we have the concurrent validity and we have predictive validity. And for concurrent validity is when you are comparing the result with existing measures. Probably you just develop, let's assume maybe there is an existing instrument, all right, and then, or let me use maybe WAEC or NECO or any other examination body. They will develop their test items, and we believe that such test is standardized. So, and then you now develop, as a researcher, you develop another instrument, and you want to see whether the instrument you develop can also be used concurrently, simultaneously with that of WAEC or NECO. Are you getting my point? So when you are doing this, what you want to establish is concurrent validity, and you correlate the scores from the existing one and the one you just developed. You administer the two instruments to the same group of respondents, and then you correlate their scores to establish the concurrent validity. And if the correlation is from 0.7 and above, then you can conclude that the two instruments can be used concurrently, simultaneously. And if otherwise, then you can make your argument based on your results. Then we have predictive validity. And predictive, as the name implies, is to predict future outcomes. So assessing the ability to predict future outcomes. For instance, probably we normally do mock exams before WAEC or NECO in most of our schools. So we can use our mock exams to predict the performance of our learner or our students in the external exam. So we normally use, and even the same thing with questionnaire also. The questionnaire we developed, we can administer it and all that, and you can use it probably to forecast what will happen in future. So for convergent validity, to establish convergent validity, we normally use average variance extracted. So the average variance extracted, if you are using software like SmartPLS, yes, SmartPLS is going to give you the AVE, yeah. But if you use AMOS software, yes, you have to. I think you have to calculate the AVE yourself. And if you use our programming language, I think it's going to give you the AVE also straight away. Yeah, so the convergent validity refers to a set of variables that presume to measure a construct. And when you look at this, you will see that we have a model here. This model is being modeled reflectively. You can see that we have sustainability, and then we have arrows, that comes out from this sustainability. And these are the observable variables, or you call it manifest variables. Are you getting my point? And these are variables that actually measure what? Sustainability here. Are you getting? So here now, this actually explains the 50%. That's why for AVE, it must be greater than 0.5. From 0.5 and above. Are you getting my point? That is the variance observed here. We have 50% variance observed in what? In explaining the sustainability, which is the construct. And then this is according to Fonelaka 1981. And for you to establish this, if you are using Amos, for instance, so this is the formula, and then the lambda here is called loading. It's called what? It's item loading. And then you say lambda square now, you square factor loading for each indicator, and then n is the number of indicators. So here now, these are your indicators that were the loadings, the item loadings for each of the items is going to generate scores. And then for each of this loading, I think here it also says it has to be from 0.6 or 0.7 and above. So we are going to score the factor loading here or item loading for each of them. Then you sum it and divide it by the number of indicators. These are your indicators. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you are going to divide it by what? By 5. And that will give you the AVE. And if it is anything from 0.5 and above, then it's okay. And also there are scholars that said from 0.4, if you are just developing a new scale. So from 0.4 also is acceptable. Reliability also, for reliability, you ensure that results across time and respondent. So we have the internal consistency, that's the reliability, because definitely we want to see.
Dr. Anyawale, you have
Yes,
10 minutes. You have 10 minutes to round up.
10 minutes, okay.
Is that okay?
Okay. Oh, yes.
Okay.
I'm
Thank
rounding up soon. So we have the Chrombatch alpha and omega reliability. We normally use Chrombatch alpha before, but when you have ordinal scale of measurement like Likert scale, it is advisable that you use either omega reliability, which we normally call composite reliability. We have McDonald, relief beta, and so on and so forth. So, and for this, it must be greater than 0.70. So if you use what is it called? If you use software like Smart PLS, it's going to give you this straight away. But if it is Amos, this is the formula you are going to use to determine the composite reliability for each of the constructs in your questionnaire. Then we also have test-retest reliability, which is mostly used for non-cognitive, cognitive instruments. So you can use this for cognitive instrument to determine your reliability. Now let's talk about the factor analysis, and we have two types: exploratory factor analysis and confirmatory factor analysis. And when you look at this, this is what we use to uncover the latent factors or the dimensions that underline our test. So when you look at this is a screen plot, and then when you look at this, we have from here now, when you look at this place, this is the elbow, where the thing starts, flattening down. So for this one now, you are going to count this 1, 2, 3. So it means that for this type of study, or let me say based on this schematic diagram, then we are going to have 3 factors here. And when you have factors like this, there is need to make sure that you have at least 3 items load under each of the factor, and this is according to Tabanik and Fidel 2013. So if you have factor that is less than items loading under a particular factor that is less than 3, then such factors is not viable. I was talking about reflective model the other time, this is what I mean. You can see, and then when you look at this is factor 1, this is factor 2, and these are the item loadings, or you call it factor loadings, A, B, C, like that. Are you getting my point? And these are your observed variables. And when you look at this one, you will see that ABC now, X1 will correlate with what? With B, which is S12. And the X1 will also correlate with X3, because we have just only 3 items that measure this F1. So the 3 of them must be what? must be correlated, and that's why we have this. So the same thing with this one. But the moment you have, and I've said, what about Rx1 to X4? You see, we have X1A and we have X4A. So if you have loading here and you have another loading here on two different factors, then it becomes a cross loading. And then what will you do when you have that? So reason for cross loadings. So this includes the item is not a pure measure of intended factor. Note that it is not necessarily bad. The two or more factors on which item cross-load are not distinguishable. In this case, the factors could be what? Could be collapsed. So at times when you look at some of those cross-loading, you can look at it if an item loaded, let's say on 2 or 3 factors. One, some scholars said, look at the loading with high values. So that loading, that factor will be the one to retain that particular items. There are other scholars say, no, it means that that particular item is function, across different factors. So the best thing is to remove the items outrightly. Then we have the confirmatory factor analysis to test the hypothesis after the structure, and then how well the items represent theoretical construct. So these are the indices that is expected to use when you do confirmatory factor analysis. We have the GFI, which is goodness fit indices. We have the CFI, we have the non-fit index and the root mean square error of approximation, and so on and so forth. And these are the required benchmark that they must meet. And the last one is you need to do measurement invariance, or you call it multiple group confirmatory factor analysis, to check how each of the items in your questionnaire, what is it called, behave across different subpopulation. So, and when you want to do the multiple group confirmatory factor analysis, you have 3 things to assess. However, out of these 3, the first 3 is very important. The last one, which is scalar invariance, is not that important, but if you have the capacity, you can also establish that. So we have the configural invariance, which look at the factor structure. Let's say you want to test how the items, behaves between male and female. Now, are you getting my point? So we are going to establish the factor structure for the two and see if they are the same. And we are not going to constrain any parameters in this wise. But for metric invariance, we are going to constrain parameters there. And here we want to check the factor loadings, whether they are equivalent across subgroups. And for the scalar invariance, we are looking at the intercept, whether the intercepts are, equivalent or not, across different latent traits. And for the sample size requirement, there are various submissions on the number of items. If you have, for instance, if you have 200 items, Clean says they said 5 cases per 5 cases per parameter. That is, for each of the item, you need 5 respondents. So you can say 5 multiplied by 200, for instance, and that will give you the minimum sample size. And that is minimum, it's not desirable. So you can have more than that. So I always advise that if you use either 1 to 10 or 1 to 5 or 1 to 20 cases, then if it is 200, for instance, you are expected to sample more than, times 3 of 200, which is 600. And if it is 1,000, then times 3 of 1,000, which is 3,000, and so that you can have adequate responses. And if there is any attrition or no response to some of the items, it will not have a significant effect on your results. In conclusion, designing and validating effective questionnaire is a critical step in collecting reliable, accurate, and actionable data for research and evaluation. By understanding common pitfalls such as sampling, measurement, and response errors, and adopting strategies to avoid them, researchers can ensure the quality of their results, defining clear objectives, structuring questions logically, and maintaining ethical standards, foster trust, and enhance response rates. Validation through reliability testing, factor analysis, and pilot testing ensures that questionnaires measures intended construct accurately and consistently. Ultimately, a well-designed and validated questionnaire serves as a powerful tool to gather meaningful insights, driving informed decisions, and contributing to the success of educational programs and research endeavors. Thank you for your rapt attention. I welcome questions now. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, sir, Dr. Anyawali, for the wonderful presentation. The presentation has been so wonderful, interesting, and highly engaging. We thank you for the presentation. Before we commence the question and answer section, if you have a question, you can signify by raising up your hand. Then after my announcement, then we can answer our questions. Number one is that please kindly assist us to subscribe our YouTube channel to get more updates on our activities, our research activities. Most of our videos is always on our YouTube channel. You can subscribe and you can also share it, make comments on the YouTube channel. Also, as you all know that this program is being organized by Client Aspire Limited. And what we do at Class Aspire, we are simply an educational and research firm. And part of our activities include research and publication consultancy. You want to publish in high impact journal, we can advise you on where to publish and where not to publish. And then also, we're also involved in international and local admission for schools outside of Nigeria and within Nigeria's. And also, part of our activities also include capacity development programs, school-based management services. If you have a school, you need somebody to assist to manage, so our company can take over the school and manage it on your behalf. And then we also have partners when it comes to supply and sales of educational material. And lastly, we also engage in edutourism. So if you need any of our services, you can go on our website and easily make your request. Immediately you make your request, we are going to get back to you. So at this point, we are going to open the floor for question and answer session. I think I have two individuals that have raised up their hand. You can unmute yourself. I think Mr. Mansour Bello. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me, please?
Yes,
Hello,
yes.
can you hear me? All right.
Yes.
Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to you all. First, I would like to congratulate the presenter. He has done justice for the whole presentation. I am really very excited, and I have to appreciate you people that brought this capacity building training. I would like to talk on one or two things. First, I would like to mention that from the initial stage, I think the research question, the last one, is not specific. The presenter may wish to review it or recheck. And at the same time, in content validity, you made mention that you can go for face validity, which I believe as an expert, you know, face validity is the most weakest validity among the validities. Instead of using it, I advise we should go for content validity, because if we use content validity, that is where we have the category of expert, where we have field expert, psychometrician, and the language expert. So I believe those one can take care of whatever we are going to do in content validity. And instead of going for CVR, CVR has a lot of criticism because it has not been taking care of so many things. Instead, I believe many people now are using CVI, that is Content Validity Index, instead of CVR, I mean. Then the last one I want to ask, can you, like for instance, if you are measuring, you have a variable that has to do with the student welfare and the teacher's motivation. If you get the responses from both student and the teachers, maybe you are looking for the not only from just my end as a small person, there are some professors that were arguing over it, which I believe there is no way they can correlate students' responses with teachers' responses to get what they want, because they are trying to find out whether there is relationship between students' welfare and teachers' motivation. These are some of the questions that I want the presenter to help me out to answer. Thank you very much for having me here, and I really very appreciate it. We are looking forward to see the next version of the presentation. Thank you.
Dr. Yamale, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. The person that asked that question, you first talked about, you said the research question does not, you said the last research question is not specific. And
Yes.
yes, does the scale demonstrate acceptable reliability level? I don't know what you mean by it is not specific. Probably you can share more light, on it. But for me, this is very clear. It's very directional. You
So
know
if you
what you
look at the
want.
third one, I believe that your research question must be in line with research objectives. So I believe there is something is missing, which is make it not be specific.
What I would say for research objectives, said to determine the reliability of scale using internal consistency. Are you getting my point? So
For that.
it's not necessary that you render your research question the same way the research objective is being rendered. What we are interested in is that does that research question actually answer or derive from the research objectives? And what this is telling you here is that we are looking at the internal consistency of the questionnaire, whether it's acceptable or not. Are you getting my point? But by and large, that is why the questionnaire development, it's subjective when you develop them, and it's always advisable go using both the, like I said, inductive and deductive approach, and then at the point of validating and all that, where you have shortfall or shortcomings, should be able to identify some of those areas. And secondly, you asked about phase validity. Yeah, if you listened very well when I made that presentation, I did not include phase validity even in the presentation. It was just I just make reference to it that it's also one of the validity that we have, and like you said, is the weakest form of the validity. However, the phase validity also was used at the initial stage just to look at the structure and all that. But we are not presenting anything in that direction because I told you we have about 145 items initially, right? So despite the fact that we have that, we use content validity to the subject experts, so to say, to help us look at the essentiality of the items and all that. And you said that the content validity ratio has been criticized in the literature extensively. Yeah, well, the content validity ratio is there, that's what the law sheet says. But if you remember, I said you will find the content validity index by finding the average of the content validity ratio. Are you getting my point? But I stand to be corrected anyway, because I've not seen any other approach that you can use to determine the content validity index. And if there is any document work, then probably you can share with me so that we also learn in that direction. And thirdly, you said combining school student welfare, right?
Yes, sir.
And what?
Student and teachers' motivation.
Okay. So you are saying to establish the relationship between the two, that is it right?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Well, I do tell what I normally tell my students, in research, there is no wrong or right answers in research. What you need is to defend your position. So the person that come up with student welfare and whether satisfaction and want to establish the relationship, if the person can justify why he or she is doing that, and then the way he or she conceptualize the research. So I cannot say here that the person is wrong or right. Are you getting my point? Because I'm not the one that conceptualize it. However, if it's with issue of data margin, yes, I can talk about that one, because at times you can get your data from the students and also from the teachers. Are you getting my
Yes,
point?
yes,
And you know that
yes, sir.
the number of students, they are, you know, outnumber the number of teachers. So
Yeah.
what will you do? So there is what we call data margin. So you need to match their data, and also considering the unit of the analysis. That will really help you to do the margin of the data set. Thank you.
But sir, what about the traits, like the characteristics of the respondent? How are you going to take care of it? Like, for instance, now, if you look at the teachers, you know their traits, like their characteristics may differ from that of the student because, for instance, age of the students, their classes, age of the teachers, and their qualifications. That is what I mean. How can
Yes,
you match and maybe run correlation analysis with it without having any problem?
yeah, like I said earlier, you are talking about demographic variables now of the students, right?
Yes.
And the what I said initially in terms of data point, I'm not talking about the demographic variables. Probably there are some other issues that you are looking at, that you collect data from the teachers and you collect the same data from the students, and you need to match the data point based on the unit of the analysis. Then that is possible. But this one that you are talking about, demographic, this and that, I cannot answer that because I don't know how such research is being conceptualized. It's like if I use a particular variable as dependent variable in my study now, and someone comes tomorrow and use that as independent variable, and someone was now asking me that, no, but this particular variable is an independent variable. Why are you using it as dependent variable? So it's all about me to say, yes, this is why I'm using this. This is how I conceptualize it. And I need to operationalize that particular variable in my study.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Then as regard the issue of face validity, even is very important even sometimes, because for example, even though if you have observed the construct validity and other types of validity, sometimes the face validity, so when you look at the just mere inspection of the questionnaire, it can speak a lot. And that is why sometimes when you see the way some people, the way they design their question, when you just see it, even though you have not read the questionnaire, you feel like, let me read it. That's why some people, even if you look at in presentation, you see the way some people present slide. This is the way the other person presents the slide. So those things too matter. Though it may be weak, but we can always use more than one approach to validate our question. The next person, please. You can unmute yourself. Do you also have any other question?
Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon,
Yeah.
Mr. Kolawale.
Yes, I want to appreciate the facilitator for a wonderful presentation. That is quite excellent. My question is, the presenter made mention of something during his presentation, that why we are adopting a questionnaire, or maybe we are adapting it. He said something that I noted. He said, even though the scale have been validated with established reliability coefficient, he said they still need to revalidate it. And that one, I would like to the presenter to shed more light, because what I learned, or what I know, is that as much as the scale have been validated and has passed through a series of stages, that as you are adapting it, that there's no need of validating it at your end here. So I would like the presenter to share more light on that.
Dr. Yinwale, you have the floor.
Okay. Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that question. Why I said so, one, based on my experience as a researcher and also as an academic editor for different journals, and even logically, let's just leave out the others. Logically, a scale is developed somewhere else. Are you getting my point? And they use respondents from that context. They also factor in the norms, the culture of that particular environment. Even in terms of the terminologies used, in terms of language used, it has something to do with the scale validation. And a scale that has been validated in Malaysia, for instance, in let's say in 2021, and this is 2024. Now you want to use it in Nigeria or any other context. One, you have different respondent that is going to respond to that scale. In terms of language, you need to look at it very well to say that in my context, will my target audience understand some of this language? And that is why many times you see people adapting because they want to tailor it to their context. So when you are done with all that, there is need for you to revalidate that instrument so that it will be context specific. So when you revalidate it, you now present that, yes, this instrument, was used, as I said before, with this and that, adapted in this study and revalidated with this and these results. So that will show, one, there is transparency. Two, there is replicability. I've seen personally some of my work that I adapted existing instrument and I tailored that instrument to my context where I used it. And I've seen after publication, I've seen a lot of researchers. They wrote and said, please, can we use this instrument in their own context as well? So, and if they use it, they will still going to revalidate it in their own context as well. So, how we advise that you don't leverage on existing validation for a particular instrument. So when you are reusing that instrument, then there is need for you to do the necessary validation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next person.
Thank you very
Sorry,
much.
sir. Please, just before, I'm very sorry. I don't know, maybe this workshop covers practical, maybe factor
Yes,
analysis for like
yes,
using.
we are still going to that will not be today, but the next class.
No, that's
Okay.
fine.
Okay. The next person.
Thank you very much, sir. The training is quite educative. I want to commend the presenter and the organizers. Please, I need a better clarification on the aspect that has to do with the inductive and deductive. So that aspect I don't understand at all. And I think when the presenter mentioned them, he gave some very key advice when he mentioned them. This I just want him to repass that aspect for better clarity. Secondly, what was the difference between validity testing and reliability testing? What was the difference between validity testing and reliability testing? And under what context can we use either of the two? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I go ahead?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
The first question on the inductive and deductive approach to questionnaire development is very, very important when you want to develop a new skill. And the inductive means it's more or less like a qualitative, let me put it like that. So you want to gain more insight, in-depth knowledge, information, about that construct that you want to develop. And there is need for you to interact with those involved. Are you getting my point? Or probably that have experienced that particular phenomenon before, so that they'll be able to give you more insight what their perceptions are on that particular construct, how they feel. Did you get my point? So it can
Yes.
be, you can do a focus group discussion, you can do face-to-face interview or in-depth interview or what have you. Now, you are going to get this information from them a lot because they will pour their mind. This is where they are having difficulties, they are having challenges, and they see someone that wants to help them to say that, okay, how best do you think we can solve this problem? So they will pour their mind, they will tell you everything. That all this information that you got from them will really help you in developing the right items to measure that particular construct. Now, when you are done with the inductive, then you go deductively. In fact, there are some researchers that they will do a comprehensive qualitative analysis on that inductive, to using the code to identify the themes and so on and so forth. Some scholars will just report it that, yes, we conducted XYZ interviews using this and that, blah, 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 to gain insight on, the construct. Now, the deductive now is more of information you get from the literature. Probably you do extensive literature review. You can even do systematic literature review. And when you read the literature, you also have insight on items that you think you can develop to measure that construct. There is possibility of some, theory that aligns with the study. For instance, like the attitude towards what problem we use when we review literature and all that, we find out that theory of this ABC theory, aligns with that attitude. It talks about engagement, it talks about cognitive, So when we want to develop the items, we also factor items that measure emotions, cognitive, towards these word problems. So in essence, we now combine information we got from the inductive and the information we got from the literature, which is deductive, we bring everything together so that we can have a robust pool of items measuring that concept. So when you combine the two together, it will really help you to have enough, items that actually aligns with the variables of interest that you are interested in. So that is the inductive and deductive. And your second question, you said validity testing and reliability testing. It's just the same thing. We have validity and we have reliability. Either you call it, what is it called? In questionnaire development or skill development, yes, you need to validate. You need to make sure that your questionnaire is valid. You need to make sure that it is reliable. And we have different methods, different approaches that you can use to validate and to also establish the reliability of the instrument. And one of them under the validity I talked about is we use what is the content validity, we use construct validity, and under the construct validity we talk about convergent validity, discriminant validity. And if you like, you can also do criterion related validity, either predictive or concurrent validity. We also have incremental validity and so on and so forth. You understand? Then for reliability, we have because we want to check how consistent are those items in measuring, the construct over time. So we look at composite reliability. You see some people, they use Cronbach alpha, which has also been criticized in the literature, and there are several other reliability methods that you can use to establish how reliable your questionnaire items are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, I have another question. What are the pros and cons of using the online service like Google Form, Google Meets, like Google Forms?
Is that?
What are the pros? What are the advantages or the merits of using Google Forms for service?
Okay, I will say.
Are they good instruments?
Yes, I would say that Google Form is very, very okay, and the advantage, outweigh the disadvantage. One, if you use Google Form, you remember I talked about no response the other time. So if you use Google Form, you can make sure that all the items on the Google Form are compulsory. So if you don't fill this, you cannot move to the next one. Are you getting my point? So that would reduce no response missingness in your data. Secondly, in terms of harvesting your response or responses, it is very, very easy because you will just click and then you will download in the CSV format, and then you can now do the coding, because it's going to be in alphanumeric. When you downloaded it, then you can code and all that. But if you use manual way of administering your instrument, then after the administration, where you will also need the research assistants, you will pay them, you will do this, you will do that, and then even accessibility and all that, you have to come and you code your data again, one by one. You have to input the data one by one into the SPSS or a spreadsheet or Excel or any other spreadsheet. So for me, the Google Form is better. And at any point in time, if anybody asks you that, can I have the link to this survey used in this study, you just send the link to them, and then they will see everything on it. So I think the Google format, with the era of technology that we have now, we need to leverage on them, use them ethically to enhance the quality of our research work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Any other question? Okay, at this point, I think we are going to come to the end of this training. As we all know that the master class is a two class. This is the first one. The second one is going to come up on the 30th of November. And during the second one, we are going to look at it will be hands-on, where some analysis will be carried out on the area of validations and reliability analysis, so that we can see how we can really carry out these activities, because it's very important to us, as I said earlier, either for us as a student, as a researcher, as a researcher, because most of the top journals, as our facilitators emphasize, sometimes they are watching for some hints on the issue of the validation of instruments. How do you validate your instrument? Because if your instrument is validated, it will either give us an idea that this study is reliable, reputable, and we can rely on the result of the study as far as the area of knowledge is concerned. So we thank each and every one of us for attending. We thank our wonderful facilitator for the well-prepared lecture. So as we promise each and every one of us, the video recording will be available, and we equally employ each and every one of us to also subscribe to our YouTube channel. So till next class, we are going to meet on the 30th of November for the next master class. Everyone, thanks for coming. Thanks. Bye.